This is Link 270, Language, Technology, and Society, Module 4, Printing. In this lesson, we'll talk about the effects of the printing press on law. As we've been talking about with the printing press and the Enlightenment and in politics, and as well as religious reform, we've seen that the printing press made it possible and much easier to spread dissenting information with previously predominant ideas. So because of the development of the printing press, a lot of dissenting and heretic texts were spread, which critiqued the church and governments as well. And so because of this, governments and the church were quick to respond and resist. One way to create this kind of restriction, at least in the United Kingdom, or England at the time, I should say, was to create the Stationers' Guild. So this was a legal monopoly that the British Crown created, to which all printers needed and publishers needed to join. Otherwise, your publication would be illegal. And because of this, there was much stricter and central control as to what materials could legally be printed in England. So all publication in England at the time would be controlled by this single organization. So here we see how a government might respond to regulate the press in this way. Similarly, we see that in the Catholic Church began to compile a list of texts which contained heretical ideas, which were prohibited. So these were compiled in what was called the Codex Librorum Prohibitorum. It basically translated as the book of, or the list of books that are prohibited. And also with this concept of press regulation and increasing censorship of the press, there also came opposition to this increased control over the press. There became more demands for the press to be free, so that ideas could be spread more easily, along with a new conception about the freedom of speech. So now we have to remember that that knowledge, at least prior to the development of the printing press, was controlled by small amounts of people. But with the printing press, it became easier to distribute information to a much larger audience. So speech had a much more political force than it did before. And because of this, new ideas of the right to freedom of speech came around the same time. So because of the printing press, these kinds of freedoms took on a new character. And another legal development that developed along with the development of the printing press is the idea of a copyright law. So remember when we talked about how Bibles were produced in the Middle Ages, they were produced by hand, and it took a very long time to do them. Now, if you wanted to make a copy of someone else's book and sell it on a large scale, that just wasn't something that was feasible in the Middle Ages. But with the development of the printing press, this became possible. And it could, and not only that, but also a very lucrative business as well. So in 1710, we see the first example of what we can call a copyright law, which is the Statute of Anne in the United Kingdom. This law replaced the previous Stationers' Guild, and this became the new way that the press was regulated. We're probably all familiar with copyrights, but what the Statute of Anne gave was exclusive rights to publish a particular written work for 14 years. So although it was technologically possible for someone to potentially plagiarize your work and sell that, this act made that kind of thing illegal. That if you published a work, you would have the exclusive right to own that intellectual property for 14 years. And then after this period, the work is in the public domain. This is another new concept. So now we have some kinds of information which is privately owned, and some kind of information which everyone is able to access for free as well. With the introduction of these kinds of copyright laws, we get the idea of intellectual property, that we don't just own physical things such as commodities and land, but also things like books and publications. Today, this kind of intellectual property has been extended to text and art forms such as music and software as well. And now, given the size of software engineering companies in the economy today, this idea of intellectual property has taken on much more significance. But yeah, this kind of goes to show how printing kind of affected the legal conception of what property is.